So you mentioned a very important thing, and for haptics, it's like a king. It's a context, right? It's so important. Who is touching, right? And then which circumstances. So, and this is somehow related. I mean, it's not somehow, it is related to design of your studies, right? So that's what I want to talk a bit more about, because as I understand in your like daily like work activities, you conduct all kinds of psychophysical studies, right? Like experiments and maybe like user experience studies. I don't know, maybe in semi-controlled environments. Maybe you can tell me more about like type of studies you conduct. Maybe perhaps you can also mention what kind of tactile effects you study, right? Or design for those studies, right?
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, so as you said, I do lots of studies with humans, but I would differentiate them in two branches. The first one is the perceptual studies, when I need to focus on characterizing the haptics output. So I need to know what is the frequency or intensity that we need to feel this or that sensation. So I will use strictly controlled psychophysical studies that are with lots of repetition so that we have high power effect, and then we can say with a certain amount of safety that you have to use this and that to make the haptic perceivable. And then there is the other branch that is more on the qualitative side, like UX, and then I would use some surveys, questionnaires, usability testing. But sometimes I need to mix the two of them, because psychophysical studies, they give you access to the observed behavior, and that's good, but then you don't have access to what's really happening on a higher level into the human brain. For example, there are a series of cross-modal correspondences, which are these effects for which maybe you feel like high-pitched sound is coming from a small object. No, so there are all of these high cognitive factors that influence top-down your perception. So top, because it's in your experience, your prior about the world, will influence how the percept is finally perceived. So if I have to give you an example, if you want to study the strength the perceived strength of our haptics, no, and you start modulating with frequency, then for someone the low frequency might be perceived as the strongest one, because they will feel like something like tum tum tum, that feels like a hammer. But for someone else, you will have high frequencies as the stronger ones, because this ta 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 might feel, for whatever reason, the stronger one. So psychophysically, what you have is a data that is saying the opposite thing. So the low and the high frequency is the strongest one. And then you cannot understand what's happening in your data. So if you add some qualitative measures, then you might be able to disentangle this mess in your data, and finally understand that, okay, it might happen because some of us feel high frequency in a way and low frequency in another. So I think that while quantitative studies are really important, because you can go to your stakeholders and public and saying, we tested this, it's working, then you need also some qualitative measures to really understand what's going on at a higher level. So yeah. And again, if I need to study high level complex interactions, then I might use something more UX. Once the psychophysics is out of the game, no? With the psychophysics, I tell you, use this frequency, use this intensity, because for sure the user will feel it. But then you mix them up to create something, and then I will have to use something else to say, maybe if the feedback that I coded is making sense for the user, if the position where they have to interact might be tiring for the arm and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm a bit less on the designing effects of the haptics, but if I have to cite something, it might be again this hairy skin effect, because that is a nice example of serendipity. For example, I was studying the distance between the focal point and the skin. Usually the focal point has to be on the skin to indent it and make you perceive something. But then I was using a meter that had 3 centimeters. I didn't account for. So my focal point was a distance from my skin, and I could feel this stream of air that was actually making the sensation perceivable on the hairy skin. At that point, I characterize a bit the output, so that if I was going farther from the skin, I would feel it stronger. But also at some point, I was modulating the temperature of the stimulus, because it's wind, basically. And then you try to find this balance between perceived strength and temperature to to provide the sensation that it's the most pleasant possible, for example. And
Interesting.
recently, I was just citing that some colleagues at Ultraleap coded also a tool which is kind of useful for prototyping and fastly special tactile patterns. And now, instead of coding, you have an interface. You can put all your points in succession, and then play with intensity, the timing of it, and then you might be
able like a visual interface, right? As
yes, exactly, to prototype more easily. But yeah.
So